Hey everyone, I'm Clue. Today we're going to start diving into multi-block structures. And they're a lot simpler than you might think. In fact, they use a simple premise, which is just detecting blocks, and are therefore insanely easy to set up in vanilla. In fact, that's what I'm using right now to stop me actually sinking into lava. So then, what command do we actually have to use? Well, it's super simple. All we're using is an if block statement. So this is detecting every player, and if there's a block underneath them, lava, then it's going to give them the effect levitation. And what this means is, as soon as we walk onto a block of lava, it's now detecting that block underneath us and preventing us from falling it in because it's giving us levitation. We can take this principle and we can transform it into multi-block structures here in vanilla. Now, there's actually two main ways I will classify multi-block structures here in vanilla. So we can either make what's known as an active multi-block structure, so a structure that is permanently active and running an effect, or an inert multi-block structure. So when I say inert, I mean we as a player have to interact with this structure in order to produce an effect. And the trick between the two is the entity. Because in order to actually detect a multi-block structure, like with the lava, we need to detect an entity to actually locate the blocks. So the trick to getting around this with active multi-block structures is to use something like an item frame. But we'll get to that in the second part. For now, we're just going to focus on the inert multi-block structure. So this little platform or pedestal, we're going to make something happen when we, as the player, interact with this. So the actual command setup is super simple, which again makes it one of the ones where it's up to you to be creative with it and transform it into your desired multi-block structure and command settings. So if we look at the command, all we're doing is we're executing at an entity. We're using items as the entity. Now you could translate this to, say, a mob or a player walking onto the multi-block structure, anything like that, as our form of interaction. But we need to execute at something. We can't execute at a block because there's too many blocks in the world for the game to detect. So we have to use an entity. So again, when I talk about active multi-block structures, I'm in most cases labeling them with an item frame because this is a stationary entity that we can track. But in this case of an inert one, we're using an item. So we're detecting the item's location and then detecting the blocks around them. And this is how we set up our multi-block structure. So first off, block underneath, sea lantern, and then on each side, a prismarine brick stair. So if we go over to our little multi-block structure, and of course we drop any item right now onto it, we see in the chat it says working. So our multi-block structure, for all intents and purposes, is done. That's all you need. You just have to specify the blocks in the correct locations. So again, just to show off the command, so all you're alternating is these if block statements, and you just want to map out your design or your multi-block structure and map out where each block is in relation to your entity. And then after that, we just have to change the run to actually do something. So we've got our legendary chestplate with Almighty, but it doesn't do anything. So why don't we go ahead and make it actually function? So why don't we make a mechanic where we now need to go get a Heart of the Sea and charge it with our little multi-block structure. So I'm going to go ahead, set up all the command blocks, and then we'll go through it. Right, after a little bit of tinkering, what have we ended up with? Well, the first command's grown a little bit. So again, we're executing at the diamond chestplate, legendary chestplate, so the one we've created that's named. And again, we're detecting all the blocks around it, so sea lantern underneath it, and then prismarine brick stairs in each direction. But now we're also adding a second item. So we're doing if entity distance ... So this means that the second item has to be in 1 block range of the first item. And we're looking for a Heart of the Sea with a count 1. If we find it, we run data modify, and we're changing or I should say we're adding to the legendary chestplate a new lore tag called charged. After that, all we have to do is make sure to clean up the items so that they're consumed and it creates the effect that we're actually crafting with our multi-block structure. So execute at our item, diamond chestplate. Now with the lore tag charged, it's going to kill any item that's limited to 1 and sort by the nearest. So this means it should ideally always get the block nearest. You could add a distance parameter just to ensure that it gets the correct one. But in that, it's just going to delete 1 Heart of the Sea nearest to our new chestplate. So let's go ahead and craft it. So I've got our chest plates and I've got our Hearts of the Sea. I only need 1. If I go ahead and drop them on the ground, nothing special happens. Still Almighty and still just our Heart of the Sea. But if we go over here to our multi-block structure, chest plates, Heart of the Sea disappears, and our chest plate has charged. So with our chest plate all charged, what's going to happen? Well, why don't we swap over to survival? And let's become the Almighty. Ready? Shift right click, right? That's equip.